They didn't train to failure. They didn't chase the pump. And they sure as hell didn't follow Western bodybuilding routines. But somehow, they built muscle that defied logic and strength that still echoes through record books today. Think about that. While gyms in America were flooded with lifters trying to squeeze out one more rep, collapse on the floor, and call it beast mode, Soviet athletes were doing the opposite. They trained with control, precision, structure, and over decades, not months, they became some of the strongest, most durable lifters the world has ever seen. Leonid Taranenko was still setting Olympic records in his mid-30s. Rudolf Plyuk-Felder was doing explosive jump squats in his 80s. And here's the wild part. These guys weren't following some secret underground Russian steroid protocol. They were applying sports science that Western countries ignored, and still ignore. No flashy machines, no burnout workouts, no bro science. Just heavy, focused work, staying well below failure, done consistently, relentlessly, and with purpose. They trained like engineers build bridges, never overbuilt, never rushed, never unstable. And their results? Brutally effective. Now here's the real question. Why haven't you heard of this before? Why are we still being told that training harder is the answer? That failure equals growth, and that more is always better? Because the truth doesn't sell supplements, but it does build monsters. So if you've been stuck chasing results that never come, if your joints hurt, your motivation's fried, and you keep wondering why your progress keeps stalling, this might be the most important video you ever watch. If this is already hitting close to home, hit that subscribe button, because what's coming next might just change the way you train forever. The hidden science behind Soviet strength. While the rest of the world was obsessed with pushing to the edge, Soviet lifters were quietly building strength using a formula that seemed counterintuitive. But it worked better than anything else. They trained at sub-maximal loads, usually between 70 and 85% of their one-rep max. Not once in a while. That was their default zone. Yuri Vlasov, Olympic champion and one of the strongest men of his time, would routinely perform 6 to 9 sets of singles and doubles. Heavy weight, low reps, but never went to failure. Never grinded. His reps were always crisp, explosive, and under control. To the outsider, it didn't look intense, but it was brutally effective. The data proved it. Over 40 years, the Soviets collected performance data on thousands of elite athletes. What they found was shocking. Nearly 70% of their training was done in that moderate intensity zone. Only 5% ever went above 90% of max. That means the majority of their work wasn't about max effort. It was about max quality. And yet, these lifters got bigger, way bigger. Some carried over 300 pounds of pure, functional muscle. Not bloated water weight, real mass, real power. And they weren't falling apart by age 30. Many competed into their 40s, a direct result of not abusing their nervous system or grinding their joints into dust. Compare that to Western lifters who chase PRs every week, train to failure constantly, and spend more time recovering from injuries than actually training. It's not even close. One system burns you out, the other builds you up, slowly, steadily, permanently. But that's just one piece of the puzzle. Why greasing the groove works like muscle magic. The Soviets didn't just lift heavy. They trained with frequency so high it sounds insane. Pull-ups, push-ups, bodyweight drills, done 5, 6, even 7 times a day. But here's the twist. They never pushed to failure. Every set was clean, controlled, almost easy. It was a method they called greasing the groove. and it rewired their bodies for strength on a cellular level. At first glance, it looks too simple to matter. A few push-ups here, a couple pull-ups there. Doesn't feel like a real workout. But do the math. 5 quick sets of 10 push-ups spread across your day becomes 50 push-ups daily. That's over 300 a week. And you didn't even break a sweat. Multiply that across weeks, months, years, and now you've got volume most people couldn't handle in a single session. And here's the genius of it. There's zero burnout. Because you're never redlining, your nervous system stays fresh. Your joints stay healthy. Your movement stays perfect. That's how Soviet athletes could train 6 days a week, multiple sessions per day, and still feel sharp. They weren't breaking themselves down. They were reinforcing patterns over and over again. It's like brushing your teeth. You don't do it once a week for an hour. You do it twice a day, consistently, forever. That's how technique sticks. That's how strength becomes automatic. Your body doesn't just remember movements, it engraves them. That's why their reps looked effortless, because they'd done them thousands of times with perfect form. This wasn't just for Olympians either. The Soviet government pushed Zaryadka, morning circuits, across the entire population. Factory workers did them before their shifts, school kids before class, soldiers before breakfast. 10 minutes a day. No equipment. No excuses. It wasn't about building the perfect body. It was about building the habit of movement. Modern lifters skip this completely. They go hard 3 times a week, sit for the rest of it, and wonder why their recovery sucks and their strength plateaus. Movement isn't something your body tolerates, it's something it adapts to, but only if it sees it often enough and in the right doses. The Soviets mastered that balance, and once you experience what high-frequency, low-intensity volume feels like, you'll never go back. You'll feel stronger between workouts, more stable, more explosive, and all without destroying yourself. That's the groove. That's the secret. And the next part? That's where everything changes. The chaotic structure that creates ruthless consistency. If you're used to linear progressions, deload calendars, and carefully mapped spreadsheets, the Soviet system might look like madness. One week they'd do 200 total reps, the next only 80, then jump to 160. No smooth curves, no obvious logic, just massive fluctuations, on purpose. But there was a method behind the madness. This was strategic chaos. The Soviets learned that the human body doesn't respond to predictability. When training becomes too routine, adaptation slows. Muscles stop growing. Power plateaus. But throw in random waves, different volumes, different intensities, and suddenly the body's forced to keep up. It wasn't guesswork. It was data-driven. Soviet scientists tracked response curves, how muscle, nervous system, and recovery adjusted to different loads, and they found that non-linear variation triggered better gains than rigid programming. It's like shaking a snow globe. Every time the pattern shifts, your body has to reorganize itself. That's where progress happens. In practice, this meant some weeks felt brutal. Others felt light. But that contrast was key. High-volume weeks pushed adaptation. Low-volume weeks let it sink in. Recovery wasn't something tacked on after the fact. It was baked directly into the program. You never stayed in overdrive long enough to crash, but you pushed hard enough to evolve. That's what allowed lifters to stay consistent for months, even years, without hitting the wall. They weren't starting from scratch every January. They weren't nursing injuries all spring. They just kept showing up, doing the work, and letting the plan do its job. No burnout, no guesswork, just results. Most modern programs miss this completely. They're either too soft to trigger real change or too intense to be sustainable. The Soviets didn't pick one. They used both. They cycled stress and recovery like clockwork, and they trusted the system, even when it didn't feel hard enough. But it gets deeper. Because it wasn't just about what they did. It was how they did it. And that's the next layer almost nobody gets right. The simplicity that builds unshakable strength. Here's where most people get it twisted. They think elite results require complicated workouts, packed schedules, and 20 different exercises per day. The Soviet system proved the opposite. Their weekly training plan was brutally simple. 3 main sessions: focused, efficient, and deliberate. Monday started with barbell back squats. 5 sets of 3 reps at around 80% of your 1-rep max. Not to failure, not even close. You could probably squeeze out 6 reps, but you stop at 3. Why? Because strength isn't about seeing how far you can push. It's about building a foundation you can repeat over and over again. After squats came Romanian deadlifts. 4 sets of 6 reps at 70 to 75%. Same rule applies. Perfect form, perfect tempo, no ego. If your back starts rounding or your grip gives out, you're done. You don't grind through bad reps. You stop before you fall apart. Then pull-ups. 5 sets of 5. Weighted, if you're strong enough. The Soviets knew back strength wasn't about machines or cables. It was built through heavy vertical pulls, done with discipline and frequency. That's it. 3 exercises, done in about an hour. No fluff, no distractions, just work. Wednesday followed the same structure. Bench press as the main lift, with the same heavy but clean protocol. Military press came next, then dips. A movement so valued in Soviet training, it was once an Olympic event. Again, no chasing failure, no pump sets, just strategic tension, executed with total control. Friday was your pulling day. Deadlifts, barbell rows, chin-ups. Maybe clean pulls as a finisher if you're chasing power. But even here, the volume was carefully capped. Deadlifts, for example, were limited to 3 sets. Why? Because the Soviets understood the nervous system. They knew that going too hard on deadlifts wrecks your recovery for days. Every part of this plan served a purpose. No isolation, no fluff, just compound movements, clean execution, and smart volume. And yet, somehow, this minimalist system built some of the strongest, most muscular bodies in history. But remember, the lifts were only half the story. What they did outside the gym? That's where the real magic happened. The morning ritual that multiplied. Results? Most people think training happens only in the gym. 3 times a week, 1 hour per session, then done. But the Soviets lived by a different rhythm, one that made them stronger before most people even got out of bed. They called it zaryadka, or morning exercise. And it was mandatory. Before breakfast, before the day even started, Soviet athletes and citizens would do a 10-minute bodyweight circuit. Nothing fancy, just 3 to 5 rounds of push-ups, bodyweight squats, pull-ups, and sit-ups. Minimal rest, clean form, and 0 intensity. Doesn't sound like much, right? That's the point. This wasn't about fatigue. It was about priming the body, training the nervous system, reinforcing movement. Think of it as brushing your teeth, but for your muscles. It wasn't optional, it was automatic. And over time, those small, consistent reps added up to massive results. The kind of results that compound week after week without breaking you down. Even more impressive? It wasn't just Olympic hopefuls doing this. Radio broadcasts led Zaryadka routines across the country. Kids in schoolyards, soldiers in barracks, workers in factories. 10 minutes a day, every day. No gym needed. No excuses allowed. It became part of their national identity, and it made their population measurably stronger and more mobile. And here's the genius. These circuits were done at about 50% of your max. If you could crank out 20 push-ups, you did 10. If your pull-up max was 15, you stopped at 7 or 8. Always sharp, always fresh. No sloppy reps, no burnout. That's what made them sustainable. In modern training, we skip this. We think more rest equals better recovery. But recovery isn't about doing nothing. It's about moving the right way, in the right dose. These morning circuits increased blood flow, improved coordination, and taught the body how to stay strong outside the gym. That's what greasing the groove really looks like. And just when you think that's the whole picture, there's another layer. Because once or twice a week, the Soviets added one more tool to their arsenal. And it wasn't cardio. It was raw, explosive power work. Power without fatigue. The plyometric edge. If strength builds the engine, power is the ignition switch, and the Soviets knew exactly how to flip it. They didn't just lift heavy and call it a day. Once or twice a week, they trained explosiveness with surgical precision. We're talking box jumps, depth jumps, explosive push-ups, but not the way modern athletes do them. These weren't circuits meant to get you sweaty. They weren't about heart rate or fatigue. They were about force production, pure nervous system output. Each set was short, each rep was sharp, and the rest, between sets, 2 to 3 full minutes, minimum. Because real power can't be rushed. It needs recovery to ignite. The man behind it all? Yuri Verkhoshansky, the Soviet scientist who literally invented plyometric training in the 1960s. His research showed that properly applied jump training could turn strength into speed, and speed into dominance. Olympic lifters, sprinters, combat athletes, they all used it because it worked. But here's what most people get wrong. They treat plyometrics like conditioning. Fast reps, minimal rest, burnout. That's not power. That's just fatigue in disguise. The Soviets avoided that completely. Their reps were explosive but smooth. Their landings were silent. Every movement had purpose. If it wasn't perfect, it didn't count. And you don't need to go crazy. 3 to 5 sets of 5 reps. That's it. Add it once or twice a week and let your body adapt. Box jumps to build leg drive. Depth jumps to teach reactive force. Explosive push-ups to convert pressing strength into real-world speed. All of it ties back into the main lifts. This is what made their athletes not just strong, but dangerous. They could move weight and move fast. They didn't gas out under a barbell. They didn't fold under pressure. Their power was clean, reproducible, and sustainable for years. And here's the part nobody expects. All of this was just the beginning. Because after 4 weeks of smart, structured training, the real shift kicked in. And that's where most lifters hit the wall. Why week 5 feels wrong, but changes everything. For 4 weeks, you're locked in. Heavy lifts, controlled volume, explosive power, smart structure. You're feeling stronger, sharper, maybe even invincible. And then, week 5 shows up, and everything slows down. Fewer sets, lighter weight, shorter sessions. You think, did I mess something up? But no, this is exactly how it's supposed to feel. The 5th week of the Soviet cycle is a deload, a programmed step back designed to launch you forward. It feels like you're not doing enough. It feels too easy. But that's the trap. Your body doesn't grow when you're pushing it to the edge. It grows when you're giving it room to adapt. And this week is where the gains lock in. Here's what most lifters do. They skip it. Or worse, they modify it. Keep the weight heavy. Add a few more sets. Just a little extra, they tell themselves. But that extra breaks the cycle. It interrupts recovery. It steals progress before it even has a chance to happen. The Soviets knew better. They respected the system, even when it felt counterintuitive. During week 5, every exercise drops in volume. What was 6 or 7 sets becomes 2 or 3. Your weights come down by 10, maybe 15%. You rest more. You move better. You leave the gym feeling refreshed, not wrecked. And yet, under the surface, something powerful is happening. Your nervous system is catching up. Your muscles are rebuilding. Your body is supercompensating. A word most lifters never even learn. By week 6, you don't just return to the plan. You level up. Add 5 pounds here, another rep there. You've recovered, you're stronger, and you can now repeat the cycle with a higher baseline. That's how real progress works. Not with huge leaps, but with small, precise steps, stacked relentlessly over time. The mistake is trying to accelerate the process, jumping 10 pounds instead of 5, pushing sets when the plan says to pull back. That mindset kills momentum. It leads to burnout, plateaus, and injury. The Soviet system thrives because it's patiently aggressive. It moves forward, but never recklessly. And the moment you accept that, you stop chasing fast results. You start building real ones. And suddenly, everything feels different. Because you're not training for next month anymore. You're building for next year and the year after that. The 7 mistakes that kill your progress and how to never make them again. The Soviet system works, no doubt, but only if you follow it. And this is where most people fall apart. They hear 80% and think, I can handle 90. They see 5-pound jumps and think, let's do 15. But these shortcuts don't speed things up. They blow everything up. Mistake 1, going too heavy too often. The percentages aren't random. They're built from 40 years of research on elite athletes. Pushing past them doesn't make you progress faster. It just fries your nervous system. The work zone, 70 to 85%, isn't a compromise. It's a sweet spot, and ignoring it is a fast track to burnout. Mistake 2, skipping week 5. It feels boring, easy, pointless. But that deload is where recovery becomes growth. That's when your body upgrades. Miss it, and you stall. Or worse, you start regressing. The best athletes in the world took their deloads seriously. That alone should tell you something. Mistake 3, adding fluff. Where are the curls, the abs, the bonus sets? This program is simple on purpose. 3 to 4 exercises per day, done with total focus. Every extra movement you tack on steals energy and recovery from the lifts that actually matter. It's not minimalist, it's efficient. Mistake 4, training to failure. Feels intense, looks cool, wrecks your progress. The Soviets stopped every set with 2 or 3 reps left in the tank. That's how they stayed fresh, avoided injury, and trained 6 days a week without breaking. Failure builds fatigue, not strength. And fatigue is the enemy of consistency. Mistake 5, skipping morning circuits. I'll just lift, that's enough. Wrong. Those 10-minute sessions add up to 30 or 40% of your weekly training volume. That's not optional, that's essential. It's movement nutrition. Small doses, high frequency, and it feeds your entire system. Mistake 6. Short rest times. Rushing between sets might make you feel productive, but it ruins your performance. Power takes full nervous system recovery. The Soviets waited 3, sometimes 5 minutes, or more. They weren't watching the clock. They were waiting until their body was ready to perform again. Mistake 7. Trying to optimize the plan. It's working, so you tweak it. Add more, go heavier, jump faster. It feels smart, but it's not. The Soviet system isn't a suggestion, it's a blueprint. And the second you start changing it, you start breaking it. This isn't about perfection. It's about consistency, smart effort over time without ego. That's what the Soviets mastered. That's why their results lasted, not just for months, but for decades. You've been told that more is better, that harder is stronger. That success comes from pushing to the limit, every single time. But what if the real secret is knowing when not to? The Soviets didn't win because they trained harder. They won because they trained smarter. They embraced structure. They respected recovery. And they built strength that lasted for decades, not weeks. This wasn't magic. It wasn't genetics. It wasn't luck. It was science, discipline, repetition. They followed a system that worked, and they trusted it, even when it didn't feel extreme. So now the question isn't whether this method works. The question is, are you patient enough to follow it? Because if you are, if you're done chasing hacks and finally ready to train with precision, you won't just get stronger. You'll build the kind of strength that sticks with you for life. What's the one thing you're changing in your training after this? If this video gave you at least one aha moment, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let's keep building this together. And if you're serious about making this shift, make sure you watch what's coming next. You're just getting started.